massacre of those 9 people in Charleston, the worst thing imaginable would be to validate the hate that motivated that murder. And that's what it was. It was a hate crime. It was terrorism in the name of hating blacks. Now, the polls suggest something else as a reality in that state, and that's why the flag is there. And this flag, the Confederate flag, the battle flag, often accompanies hate speech and white supremacy specifically. So people should hate it, right? Wrong. Take a look at the poll. Now, this is from 2014. It's before this event, obviously, but look at those numbers. Obviously, a big racial disparity there, but 73% of white people in the state of South Carolina say they want the flag where it is, and frankly, that is why it is where it is. One of the men who believes this very much is Pat Hines. He's the chairman of the South Carolina League of the South. They say they are a Southern nationalist organization. The Southern Poverty Law Center says they are a hate group. Mr. Hines, appreciate you taking the opportunity to discuss this. Before we get to the flag, let's get to the motivation for the passion about the flag on each side. When you heard about this kid and what was in his head that made him do these terrible things, any sense of guilt for the propaganda that you put out online that this kid, while he isn't on your rolls and rosters of members, may well have been reading the kind of stuff that you put out and motivated this?
No, I don't have any guilt. I have no idea what this young man read, except what I've read online. The passion we have is driven by the 500,000 people that were killed by the United States government of 1860 to 1865, and that's why the flag is where it is.
Well, the question becomes why, right? I mean, this is not a new conversation. We know what happened in the Civil War. We know what the flag represents. As one of your lawmakers just said, it is a symbol of hatred. It is a symbol of slavery, and it's a symbol of the dedication to that proposition. And your organization, of course, for those who may not know you, you're about that. You're about the segregation. You say there should be a good word about slavery every now and then. You're free to think those things, but do you understand why coming off something like this, it is distasteful at the least to believe that there's a symbol like that waving over a state house?
Well, we don't think that it's a symbol of hate, number one. We don't hate anyone. If you see any of our literature, we don't preach hate about anyone. We support the well-being and independence of the Southern people. That's where our nationalism comes in. We don't focus on deriding anybody.
Slavery was a good thing.
I don't really
right?
understand.
Slavery was a good thing.
Slavery, well, without slavery, all the black people in the United States wouldn't be here. You know, did you ever consider that?
That is not a good way to rationalize their existence in the United States of America.
It's not a rationalization, it's just a fact.
Of course, it's a fact that denies a context of brutality that has marked this country on many levels. I do not think it is fruitful for either of us to discuss the merits of what your organization believes. It comes down to that flag. Can you tell me anything that that flag represents that is not in some way harmful to somebody else?
Yes, it represents my ancestors who died defending our lands from an invader, a ruthless, murderous invader, as a matter of fact. So yeah, it's a memorial to those men, and I think it should stay right where it is. We did compromise 15 years ago, and that was supposed to make the discussion at an end, but apparently it's not.
Well, look, you know that hundreds of thousands died on both sides. You know what it was that started the war. You know how it ended. You're saying you want the American flag taken down and that the South should secede. It should be its own sovereign, and that's fine. You can believe all that. But coming off of this massacre, you don't feel any differently? You know guys like this killer wave that flag, and it means to them that they are justified in feeling what they feel about blacks. Doesn't that make you give a little bit of pause of consideration to whether or not that symbol's worthwhile?
No, not at all. Again, we don't advocate anybody randomly killing people of any race. So I don't really know what went through this young man's mind. I'm in the medical professions myself, and I can tell you that trying to figure out someone who does something like that is a full-time job for professionals.
But you say you don't know what was going through his mind. I would submit that you know exactly what was going through his mind. He wrote it online. The ideas are all too familiar to you. He hates blacks. He thinks they're taking over the society. There needs to be segregation. Something has to be done, and he's going to do it. Those are foreign ideas to you. Are you surprised to hear me say that that's what was going through his head?
Well, a friend of his who is black seems to think that he wasn't racist at all. I've seen that interview, so I don't understand, what a 21-year-old was thinking when he has a close friend who is black who said he isn't a racist at all. I don't know what else to tell you about that, but the flag, the Confederate battle flag, flew over the Army of Northern Virginia when we were defending ourselves against an invader. And today it's a memorial for those lost men. 25% of the adult male population of the South were dead at the end of that war.
There's no question that the loss of life was tragic, and the whole hope of Reconstruction was that this country would understand that it needed to be better than what caused that war. And that's what makes so many so depressed that that flag still waves. But I understand your right to your opinion, and thank you, Mr. Hines, for coming on the show to express it to people so we can make some sense out of the popularity polls coming out of your state.
Thank you, Chris.
Nick?
All right, a very